Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome back to Valorant news and plenty to dive into today with the new meta coming into effect for the VCT this coming weekends. Some players are happy about it. The OpTic Gaming guys seemingly think this meta is actually rather boring compared to the strategy the previous ones enabled. Very much intrigued your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you are new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Really upset the channel. Lots of new support the last few days. Absolutely love to see it. First of all, from Bodog, some talk about the 5 Smokes team, exactly how you pronounce it. Top 15 team in Valorant from the kind of CIS region has had to disband due to the kind of conflict with the Ukraine crisis. Unfortunate situation, really disastrous situation, frankly, so difficult to see. And still, the EMEA kind of VCT matches are still very much up in the air right now, when they're going to take place, what's going to happen on that front. A Gambit's still going to be able to compete at this level, right, with the players, and once the visas run out, are they going to be granted visas again? So many issues that come as a result of this. It's really difficult for, esports in general, just sports in general, the world in general, obviously. But yeah, still going to have some impact here in the Valorant world. So still lots of questions to be answered over there. The North American side generally safe for now. But yeah, I thought this is difficult to see, and definitely this is not the only implication this is going to cause in the Valorant world. Let's discuss Sentinels real quick, because yesterday we talked about a new coach they want to bring into their lineup. Of course, Raucus is out of there. They want a replacement, and they kind of say in response to the rumors, we provided a list of full active trials for our Valorant head coach position. So these are the trials, and you guys can check out who it is. So yeah, Sentinels, classic stuff. I kind of knew what it was going to be before I even clicked on this. Wasn't expecting this one specifically, but yeah, they're not giving any details away. Maybe some progress on this in the coming days. Let's talk about what FNS says then. So a pretty cool little piece here that the Valorant Champions Tour in North America do on FNS. Of course, been around the scene a very long time in Counter-Strike, now into Valorant as well. Of course, on Envy, now it is OpTic Gaming. They had a difficult performance last weekend in their final matchup against version 1, or at least, they can still qualify here, but it's actually not going to be all that easy for them. But they still do have to beat Knights to guarantee their way all the way through, which, and if they lose that one, things get very sketchy indeed in terms of what Rise Nation can do from the lower side, given they hold the tiebreaker over OpTic after a crazy first matchup that they did indeed have. But yeah, the Envy team, of course, was fantastic. This past weekend, it was basically the Yay show, right? And FNS and the boys didn't really do all that well. But there's been a lot of feedback, of course, to the new meta that's coming into play, and the new patch update that's come through, and the massive nerfs that Astra and Viper have had, and Brimstone and Omen kind of coming back into fruition, and Yoru potentially being used as well. We'll look at what TenZ had to say on that too in a second. But FNS says, look, this patch is boring. There, I said it. A very, honestly, rare opinion in the pro scene. I haven't seen all that many people say this. People were talking about this tweet from the start of February, where, he was saying Astra ruined Valorant and wasn't happy about the Astra meta, and now, now seemingly he doesn't like this new meta either. So, still, I think generally this opinion isn't particularly widely shared. I think this new meta is quite exciting, at least for the fans. For the pros, maybe they're not too happy about it, right? Because they used to deal with, kind of what Astra enabled and the heavy utility meta that we've just gone through. Now we're moving into worlds where effectively teams, that are very aggressive and take gunfights and just play for site takes in that hyper-aggressive style. That is probably going to work out rather well in this meta, right? We're kind of seeing that's how it's going, moving away from kind of heavy utility and more into just, setting up executes, going for it, taking the gunfights. That tends to be something that seems to suit the North American teams. There's been a lot of talk actually about the fact that if Sentinels aren't good on this patch, then, they might as well just disband, because this patch is seemingly made for them. It should be ideal in theory for not just North America in general as a region, but also Sentinels as a team individually, because they didn't really change their style all that much over the last year or so since they were good. Then kind of things changed into how the meta worked. They pretty much stayed the same. Now they've stayed the same so long, the meta's kind of come back to this point where honestly it should suit them rather well. But maybe a team like OpTic, probably one of the more strategic teams in the North American region, kind of been one of the more European styled Valorant teams, if you kind of want to look at it in those terms, and maybe they're not too happy about this, right, and kind of preferred it how it was before, compared to what some teams, I suppose, are maybe currently pulling off against them in practice. Of course, so many different opinions on this. Omen is just way more fun than Astra, says Cat from C9 right here. There's also been some talk from TenZ right about the fact that he's going to use Yoru this coming weekend. They've already qualified it through to the playoffs, so they don't have to worry all that much. But TenZ really wants to make Yoru part of this current meta. Honestly, he probably will be. I think there's definitely a place for him, given the massive buff he got in the recent updates, alongside Brimstone, all this type of stuff. So really excited to see what the teams pull out this coming weekend. Only tomorrow, I believe, the matches do once begin again. And Sabrosa seems to be kind of happy, believes that Astra still can be viable, so maybe some good balance here. But FNS isn't particularly convinced that this meta is going to be a particularly good one. Wanted to discuss this as well, because I saw this a few days ago, that certainly is worthy of mention. Adderall abuse has been a problem in esports for so many years, and especially in kind of the console world, like Halo, Call of Duty, it's been a massive topic for many a year. And finally, they're starting to deal with this to some degree. Now, still, whether any players are using this in the Valorant world, that's another question mark, because, look, even if you do drug testing on site at events, you can't really deal with it online. If people want to abuse Adderall to increase their concentration in the short term, even though it has pretty significant long-term health consequences that many players have actually talked about that have abused it in the past. Like, I mean, still, if you want to do it, like, no one's really going to be able to stop you. Now, as Ethan says, James, you're a bit late, but like, people have been doing this one for years. Now, there was some talk about a particular player that might actually be abusing this on none other than the Knights, who is going to play this coming weekend up against OpTic in a very important series. So, well, anyway, Josh RT from NRG replies with, I don't know, I guess it's entirely possible to use only caffeine to be able to play 32 ranked games in a row after a 2.5 hour best of 3. So it seems like the implication is, and it kind of still says as well, that's 21.33 hours of ranked games, average game of 40 minutes, 0 queue time, basically a 24-hour day once you account for the member of the other team that shows up, etc, etc. So the player they're talking about is Knights Ban, and I mean, yeah, we can see right here on the kind of a tracker.gg page, this is a pretty insane, honestly, the amount of games this guy played. Like, you can go back here to March the 6th, which pretty much was when it was, and between March the 5th, or March the 6th and March the 7th, like, this was the particular game. The implication is he finished the best of 3 that they played last weekend, and then went on to play an insane amount of ranked games in a row. You can see this from 5:48 a.m, played a game every single 45 minutes or so, continuously all day, from the AM to the PM, all the way through the day, all the way through the night, and then even into the next day as well. On March the 7th, played a few more games in the morning as well. So just a ridiculous amount of ranked games all in a row. I have no idea how this is even possible. The implication is that in order to do this, you've got to be cracked out an Adderall. Now, you know, whether that's the case or not, that's another question. But definitely intrigued to get your perspective on it in the comment section below. One of the strangest things I've seen really hit the Twitter timeline in quite a time, especially on the Valorant side. Let's talk about this then. So some matches were going on. Yesterday, they will continue in the coming days as well. There is currently a tournament going on. What's it called, actually? Let me just check. The Boom TV Proving Grounds at 20k. Like, well, the playoffs come in a couple of days here. But actually, surprisingly, the new Dark Zero team with Drone in the team have actually taken down FaZe. Now, both teams still qualified based on the formats, but it's still quite interesting, frankly, that FaZe actually got beaten here because, of course, their new roster is, well, seemingly pretty hopeful. Like, at TSM, we're also hoping their roster can do something. So that's what a lot of these teams that failed to qualify for North American Challengers first time around, they, of course, want their second bite of the cherry to be much more successful. Losing it to Dark Zero isn't ideal. Dicey topping the scores here on the Chamber, but it was Drone on the other side on the Sovereign and the Breach that was actually having the most success over these couple of maps. So 13-11 on Icebox, 13-5 in favour of FaZe on Haven, and then 13-4 on Fracture to finish out the job. So pretty impressive stuff, I thought, from Dark Zero. Both teams still qualified. The bracket now looks like this. So, well, these teams made it through the open qualifier, and then the main event is coming up in a few days here on March the 14th. So interesting stuff. Excited to see how this tournament goes. FaZe kind of the pick of the bunch here in terms of which teams have the most clout and the biggest organizations coming into this one. This weekend then in the North America VCT, 2 meaningful matches left. Now, there's kind of more than 2 meaningful matches if you consider seeding. For example, in Group A, Cloud9 versus the Guards, both teams are 4-0. The winner of that gets the number 1 seed. The number 1 seed theoretically should get the easier seed, right? I think the way it might work, not exactly sure how they're doing the brackets, but my guess is that basically they'll just match up across the 2 teams, across the 2 groups, like at 1st and 4th, 2nd and 3rd. That's basically how it will go. So if you come number 1 seed in Group A, you should play, I imagine, the 4th seed from Group B, which of course gives you a significant advantage. Now, of course, that does depend on who actually turns out to be 4th seeds, because theoretically you can get a nice advantage, right, playing the 4th seed, but the reality is there might have been some upsets in that group that mean you actually play a much stronger team than you might do otherwise. So there's always some talk, okay, do you want to win or lose this final game? If you're 4-0, you're qualified, but then you've got to think about, okay, who's number 1 on the other side? Who do I want to play? Do I deliberately throw this game? Like, you're not really meant to do that, of course, but it's still something that has been in players' minds, and I'm sure it's happened in the past in esports history in general, and probably sports history to some degree. But the 2 matches that technically matter in terms of actually qualifying for the playoffs are NRG versus Rise and OpTic versus Knights. So, well, Rise have to win their game against NRG to be able to upset OpTic. Rise are currently 1-3, OpTic are, I guess, 2-2 right now, which means that if OpTic lose tonight, they'll be 2-3. If Rise win, they'll be 2-3, and the tiebreaker between the 2 teams will be who won the head-to-head. And Rise beat OpTic in the head-to-head, therefore they would go through, and well, they would be 4th, OpTic would be 5th. So OpTic need to beat Knights, or NRG just need to beat Rise. And that seems kind of unlikely, but it could happen. Rise, of course, are going to be very fired up for their game, of course, and OpTic need to beat the Knights 100%. And if, well, Knights ban is cracked out on Adderall, maybe it's going to be a difficult time. One pretty cool stat here, I thought, just to finish out the video that Sam Rosenberg pointed out, recent gun choices, Phantom or Vandal across all regions. Thought this is very interesting, right, because the Vandal really seems to have come back like a storming lately these last few months. Like in North America and Brazil, 50-50 pretty much exactly between which players use the Phantom, which players use the Vandal. But in the other regions, Europe and Turkey especially, pretty much all players are buying the Vandal at this point, which is quite interesting, right, how this seems to be developing. Like, I'm sure that Riot are keeping an eye on this, right, and wondering at some point whether changes need to be made. But I always kind of expected the pro players to kind of gravitate more towards the Vandal, because it is, you know, if you hit them in the head, that's a one-shot kill, which is generally going to be pretty good for pro players that have incredible aim. So, you know, it kind of makes sense that that's the case, to to be honest. But the Phantom's still seeing an awful lot of use in North America, in the American regions in general here, at least for now. Just this pretty funny clip to finish out the video. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit on the like button, tell us your YouTube god. This is a good video. I just like you should see it as well. And upgrade the competitive Valorant community. Thank you much as always. Take care. And I will see you next time.
Started. Just do there.
Oh my goodness gracious! Let me down! Let me down!
Bro, dude, they're all peeking mid.
Spike down mid.
Dude, I was stuck on his head, bro!